Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Adriana Tender, and let's queer up the USA view. Justice Clarence Thomas questions marriage equality ruling, says Precedent isn't the gospel. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is once again signaling that landmark LGBTQ rights rulings could be in jeopardy. Speaking at the Catholic University of America's Columbus School of Law in Washington, D.C., Thomas dismissed the idea that past Supreme Court precedents is the gospel. He argued that just because a decision was made doesn't mean it should stand. Thomas said, quote, "If it's totally stupid and that's what they've decided, you don't go along with it just because it's decided. You could go up to the engine room and find that it's an orangutan driving, and you're going to follow that. I think we owe our fellow citizens more than that," end quote. Thomas has a long history of opposing LGBTQ rights. In his concurring opinion, when Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, he called for reconsidering rulings on contraception, sodomy laws, and marriage equality, describing them as, quote, demonstrably erroneous, quote. He was also one of 4 justices who dissented in the 2015 Obergefell versus Hodges decision that guaranteed same-sex couples the right to marry nationwide. While no official challenge to Obergefell has reached the court, some conservative states have introduced resolutions arguing a review, and former Kentucky clerk Kim Davis has appealed her case with a petition to overturn the decision. If marriage equality were reversed, same-sex marriages would become illegal in 31 states. Marriage rights would still be recognized at the federal level under the Respect for Marriage Act signed by President Biden in 2022, but protections could fracture state by state. Polls continue to show that public support for marriage equality is strong, with over 2/3 of Americans in favor, including a record high 88% of Democrats. For now, the ruling that legalized same-sex marriage remains the law of the land. But Justice Thomas's words are a reminder that the fight for LGBTQ rights in the Supreme Court is far from over. You know, I just don't like to hear anything that comes out of his mouth. But the fact, him being a black man that's married to a white woman, and you would think like, hey, they just had Loving versus Virginia, what was that, 1967? Yeah. So if you want to sit there and talk about them overturning LGBTQ marriages, what about his marriage?
It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And Kim Davis, back in the news again. Mm-hmm. Hasn't she been married like 3 times? It's just, it doesn't make sense to me why a ruling would want to stand in the way of somebody's happiness.
I have a conspiracy theory about this. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they even really care about it. I think that they have various people in different branches of the government have conspired to say, look, I want you to do this for me, so I'm going to do this for you. Mm-hmm. So between the Trump administration, some people in Congress, key people, they've decided they're Christian evangelicals, which has been probably my biggest disappointment, because even though I no longer identify with the Christian evangelicals, I remember growing up with them. That's part of my family, and they were nice people for the most part. They were good people, and they would never elect somebody like Donald Trump, who's the most unchristian president. So they have made certain deals, some of these larger evangelical organizations, to say things like, hey, if you pass this legislation for it, we'll vote for you, even though you represent nothing of what we actually believe in. And Clarence Thomas, I'm not sure what his deal is, but maybe Trump has something on him, because he's been doing some of that illegal emoluments, getting gifts and doing things. So there's something going on. And you remember when his wife posted the upside down flag?
Yeah.
Was it during January? During some time.
It might have been during
something like that. So
the insurrection.
there is something going on there that I don't know exactly what it is, but they're trying to scratch each other's back, and it's horrifying. Hillary Clinton came out on air and was saying, "Look, I think that they're going to do this."
Yeah.
But he's got a couple gay people that are in his administration. I think Scott Bessent, who's a Treasury Secretary, maybe. You know, he's a gay man and he's married. I wonder, you know, how if he would end up coming out against something like that.
We all, not we all, but a lot of us who have seen this said, you know, we started talking about this coming in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And Roe v. Wade, they're never going to overturn it. They're never going to turn over Roe v. Wade. All of the recent appointees of the Supreme Court, it's the law of the land. It's settled law. We're not going to touch it. Well, they sure did, and completely overturned it, and that was, I mean, possibly even less. I don't want to say controversial, because I personally don't think there's any controversy in gay marriage or marriage, but they did it anyways. And if you look back at Project 2025, we're 10 months into the year, and they are plowing through that handbook.
They're like 40%.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, what we need to do is make sure that we enshrine gay rights in state laws, because it's recognized nationally, but and the Supreme Court can't overturn that because that's law already when it comes to the states recognizing it. So I'm not exactly sure which rights are conferred by the federal government and which ones are by the state government. But the way that you do it, in the same way with Roe, is that as long as it's enshrined in your state constitution, then, you know, abortion would be legal. Gay rights would be legal. Gay marriage would be legal. So, you know, everybody needs to start. If it's not going to happen this way, we got to try to make it happen in this other direction. So write your state representatives and try to enshrine that into law in case they do overturn it.
I think it's going to be imperative that we get all of our allies to be a part of this, because when you think of like the civil rights movement, it wasn't just, you know, Black people. It was everybody. And what people don't realize is, like, I think we're just the trial. You know, they're starting with like the most marginalized community, and then they're going to the next person and the next person, the next person. And I believe that, hey, like they say, we're not free until we're all free.
Yep.
Absolutely. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.